Hello dear one, and welcome to this video talking about biohacking through breathwork. Let's jump straight into and talk about spirituality. Spiritual, yes. What does this have to do with biohacking and breathwork? Well, more than you might think. I would like to explain to you guys how you are the breath of God. And in the Latin word, 𝗍𝗲 means to breathe. And it is from that word that the English language actually originally based the word spiritual on. So this is why to breathe means that you already are spiritual. Regardless of the hype around any attached story or idea, these two concepts, I invite you to stay really curious and to listen to this video with an open mind. So from this perspective, how is it that we can biohack the body through the breath? Biohacking can be explained as the biological experimentation done to improve the qualities and the capacity and capabilities of the living organism. So in other words, optimizing the biological system and all of its functions and all of its systems to a higher harmony and to improved coherence, meaning everything is falling into place and everything is working together at its most efficient and optimal energetic way. There's no interference patterns that the body has to use or do to use more energy to get something done. Everything is effortless and it flows in harmony with each other. So then why do we say that the breath is something that can biohack this? Because we know about the longevity, the peptides, the machines, the technology, but the breath is actually the #1 biohacking tool that we get, and it's absolutely free. The breath is the unique entry point into the health of the body. So do you remember anything in your biology class that was talking about the nervous system? I'm going to refresh you on this. The nervous system is a really important, that's the electricity of the body. So we are electric magnetic beings, right? We have electricity, we have magnetism, we have chemicals, and all of this work together to create this human experience. And for us to feel feelings, to feel sensations, to do all those things. Now, let me refresh your memory. This nervous system, which is the electrical circuit, is responsible for relaying messages, for intelligence, for learning, movement, for maintaining homeostasis, which means maintaining balance, for interpreting sensory information, and many more amazing things within this body. So the central nervous system, being the first, is located from the brain, or the ivory complex over here, all the way down to the spinal cord where it connects to the sacrum. And from there, the central nervous system, there is also a peripheral nervous system. So this is the second part of the nervous system, which is subdivided into a somatic and an autonomic nervous system. So a somatic and autonomic nervous system, if we think about the somatic nervous system first, this is the motor neurons that are responsible for the sensory awareness and the movements of moving our arms, feeling the space around us. So this gives all of those imprints back into the brain via the nervous system. It is responsible for activities like moving the legs, moving the arms, to positioning yourself, holding your spine up straight, to standing in a downward facing dog when you're in a yoga class, balancing on one leg, all of those beautiful things are through that part of the nervous system. Now, the autonomic part of the nervous system, these neurons are directly communicating with the central nervous system. And they are also connected to all the internal organs. So there is an on switch in this autonomic nervous system, which we call the sympathetic nervous system. And then there's an off switch, which we call the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, I don't know about you, but I do remember learning that this is the part of our body that we have no control over. And this is the part of the body that everything will just happen automatically, that we have no influence on that whatsoever. And I must say that after learning how the breath can influence the autonomic nervous system, it gave me a sense of relief. But also I was relieved that my heart will automatically beat, that my metabolism will go involuntary, that the intelligence of this body also knows when to switch certain functions and when to slow certain functions down, and when to switch them off completely. So without the need to think about it, because if we have to think about every single system within our body and what we're doing, I feel that the central processing unit, our conscious mind, doesn't have the capacity to think about so many things. It has to be clear in order to notice if there's a car coming in and we have to jump out of the way for that. So I get that. I'm very happy about that. But I never had an interest to inquire deeper at that age and stage into what it really means and what is the full potential, and how it was only until I was experiencing a full burnout in my life, that an enormous amount of depression and feeling anxious for almost, I think it was more than 6 to 10 years in my life. I subsided a little bit after that, but there was still fluctuations. So within those baselines and those two extremes, I worked in the medical industry as a medical representative, and I turned to pharmaceuticals with little success. My nervous system was unregulated, which means that my homeostasis was shifting from high activations to very low peripheral nervous systems. And there was no baseline between those, which also means that my nervous system variability was not very high. So the response was super slow and I got stuck in certain states. And it was at this point that I reached a major turning point in my life, and I started inquiring deeper into the biology of the body and the mechanics of the mind. It was only when I hit rock bottom and experienced the burnout when this occurred to me. So, and that I actually looked beyond just taking a pharmaceutical drug. This is when I discovered something that completely blew my mind. And it started offering me hope, along with a direct experience of instant state changes and quick state changes, not being sticky and stuck in one specific thing. So the breath is a voluntary entry point into the autonomic nervous system. The breath is the bridge between the voluntary and the involuntary systems in our body. So muscles in the body are, for example, intertwined and inseparable with all other systems, and yet we can control the muscle. The mind can tell the muscle, hey, bend your arm, pick something up, and it will respond. But this means that the breath can happen involuntary without conscious thought directing it, because you still breathe when you sleep. And on the other hand, the breath can also be controlled through voluntary intention. If I say now, let's all take a deep breath in through the nose, letting it go through the mouth, you can influence the way that you breathe. You can choose the way that you breathe. Now, let me amplify this truly amazing phenomena. Imagine that all your organs are connected with a string. The string is energetic, so it's not a physical thing. But if one moves, then it pulls all the rest without fail, because they're all intertwined and connected. This means that if the breath changes, it will influence all other systems and all other organs, and also vice versa. The state of the organs and the state of the system will also have a direct effect on the breath. The body is such an intricate system, and its advanced technology far beyond what the mind can ever understand. It is far more intellectual than the analytical mind. Now, with this knowledge, we can inquire and witness what happens with the heart rate when the breath increases. We can also notice what happens to the heart rate when the breath slows down. The heart has no choice but to follow the breath. Just like if left unattended, the breath has no choice but to follow the heartbeat. But because we have that entry point into being able to control the breath, we now take control, and the heart rate and all the other systems has to follow. They are all a part of this distinct unit. So just like the sun is hot and light, the light and the heat are distinct aspects of the sun, yet they don't stand separate from the sun. They are one, even though these aspects are distinct in their oneness. Does that make sense? So what does this mean for you? What does it mean to be able to control the breath? The breath has the power to influence the involuntary systems of your body. It has the potential to become your medicine. It has also the potential to set you free. When there is an overload of stress on the body and the energy is not flowing with ease through all of the organs, then we experience dis-ease in energy flow. And from there, the connection to homeostasis is shifted. It's thrown off course. So by mimicking a healthy breath, which is deep, slow, and long, you can then inform and send signals to the rest of the body to follow this energy pattern, which means that you have access to the control panel of your vehicle through the breath. Learning the breath manual gives you access to operate from the inside out. Not only does it take control of your vehicle, but it also takes control and it quiets the mind. It slows the mind down. It slows the brain waves down. The breath and the mind are made of the same source. And we call that source prana or chi or life force. The breath is the gross energy and the mind is the subtle energy, which means that the breath also influences the mind directly. So again, slowing down the breath will tame the mind. There will be more spaces between your thoughts. It's almost like the thoughts will start slowing down. Have you ever noticed how you breathe when you are upset versus when you're calm? Or have you ever noticed that in a chaotic moment that your breath was naturally slow and deep? If there's no intervention into your breath and taking control, it will mimic the state that you're in. Now, this is something that we can mindfully bring attention to, calm down and invoke relaxation in any situation. The breath is a very unique entry point. Also, it makes it the first point of adaptation. The breath mirrors the vibrational frequency of this body, of this vessel. Think of your breath when you're happy, when you're in shock, when you're in awe. It mimics that immediately. And this makes the breath a valuable source to estimate your health, but also to biohack your system back into optimal health, back into a default state of homeostasis that is healthy, that is coherent, that is happy. Your circumstances are more often out of your control, but you can control how you breathe in response to these moments. This influences the electrical, the chemical relationship, the magnetism of this moment. And your quality pattern of your breath determines a trauma attachment or a fluid release and flow. If your breath is stagnant and stuck and short and shallow, contraction. If it's deep and smooth, you're not clasping and grasping onto the moment. And as we have discussed, the breath controls the heart rate, the blood flow rate. It influences directly how you feel in a moment, but more so, how you perceive a moment. Because the breath mechanics becomes more harmonious with deep patterns, your thinking becomes clear, effortless, and correctly aligned to your truth. So when the breath is circular, rhythmical, without any pauses, unmindful pauses in between, it invites coherence into the organs, into the systems, into the functions, into the processes in the body. And this encourages the heart to melt open, which is the cosmic instrument of energy. And when this is open, it's unity consciousness. The heart just wants to accept everything. When the heart is open, there is direct access to intuition. There is direct access to an extravagant surge of electrical and magnetic force. Harmonious energy is at your disposal that is far beyond any expected beauty. The field of the heart is so much larger than the field of the brain. And the misconception is that we live in our head, we live in our brain, when the mind is not even only just in the brain. The mind gives the signal to the brain. So here's a beautiful quote that I want to end off with. With an electrical component of about 60 times greater, the heart now, and an electromagnetic energy field 5,000 times greater than that of the brain, the heart has a significant influence on the body down to a cellular level. The brain's rhythms, along with the respiratory and the blood pressure rhythms, entrain the heart's rhythm. So that was said by Psychology Today, which I feel is so important to notice. Sink back, come back to the breath, come back to the heart. They are felt in the same place for a reason. And one of my favorite teachers taught me something really special. He said that you should treat all your guests like God. And the breath is a guest visiting the body. So when we treat our guests, our breath well, it brings an enormous potential for our healing and for maximizing our full sovereign potential. Your attention and your awareness is the summoning of power. It summons power. So pay attention to your breath. Pay attention to how you breathe, because that's going to be how you perceive. The goal is not to be able to hold your breath for longer. The goal is not for you to The goal is not for you to be able to hold your breath for longer or even become a good meditator, but to live a more fulfilling life, embodied in your true potential. I will go into more detail in the next video about the breath holds, where I will share the physical, the mental, the spiritual aspects, and also the benefits. When we do hold the breath consciously, when we put a pause on our breath, when we put a pause on life and just enter into dynamic stillness, when we enter into these portals of stillness that leads us into the true spontaneity, eternity of what we truly are. I hope this was helpful and interesting. So please leave a comment, leave some support. It motivates me to know whether this service is adding something to your life, and it also lets me know what it is that you care about, because I am here to serve you. Thank you for listening. Until next time.